mic here, and I was working on something, figured I'd videotape this and show you guys a little bit of a trick that I learned a long time ago for breaking some really rusty bolts loose in case you've got older vintage equipment. So let's get cracking. So you have to excuse a little bit of wind noise here. I'm on my cell phone outside, but what we have here is a very old bog disc, and part of it's already off. That took about 6 hours worth of aggressive negotiations, some including with a torch to get loose. But what we've got over here, and I thought I'd videotape this because this is pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. That's a very rusted bolt. And we've also got this one here. Now, a lot of times with older equipment like this, you'll run into this where the end of the bolt or the threads will be messed up or they're rusted together. Something that definitely helps is this stuff right here, PB Blaster. I've been dousing this stuff, you can see, on all the joints that have bolts for the past 4 or 5 days off and on, trying to get these things soaked so that they're easier to break loose. And one of the things you'll need if you're going to endeavor to do this is not a ratchet, but a pull handle. A ratchet, if you put a whole lot of force on it, you're likely to strip the gears inside of them, especially being that a lot of ratchets now don't have the higher quality gears in them they used to make. But the other thing you'll want, which I don't have in this size, is actually a 6-point socket. This is a 12. With a 12, you run the risk of rounding off those teeth in there when you really bear down on them. I've actually done this several times. Normally I would find a 6-point socket to do this with, but like I said, I don't have one this size. This is actually 1.25 inches. But anyway, a lot of times this will break them loose, but sometimes you'll get set up and you'll get a pull on it and it doesn't want to budge. This is when you go to the store and pick up one of these bad boys. This is just a piece of unthreaded galvanized pipe, about 3 feet long. And what this does is it increases your leverage. All you're going to do is slide it just like that. And now, where I couldn't budge that with one hand before, I've turned it about 1/4 of a turn just there. It's really hard to do with the camera in hand, but anyhow, there are times where you may not be able to get this to even break it loose, and you want to be careful with where you put the pipe on there. You don't want to have it too far to the end. You also don't want to lose a lot of your leverage and have it too close. I normally put it about midway, at least past any handle that's on there. But sometimes you'll still have to go and get a torch. And anytime you're using the torch, especially if you're outside, and you see this grass is pretty dry right now, make sure you have water or a fire extinguisher handy, because things can light off and get lit, as the kids nowadays say. So anyways, just figured I'd share that with you guys. We're going to go over some more stuff with this equipment later. We're also going to go over some things with the tractor there. Obviously it needs some TLC and some paint, but it's the joys of paying cash for your equipment versus going out and financing the world and being in debt forever for some farm equipment. So as you can see, that's a older bush hog and older box blade there. All of this equipment has been paid for in cash, hence the vintage patina look to all of it. So anyhow, for those of you who may encounter this, and again, some of these are going to be a lot tougher to get to with a socket. Probably going to have to use a pipe wrench, which I suggest getting a at least a 16 or an 18-inch pipe wrench for these larger nuts and bolts like this. But any of you that run into this, it can be done. You don't necessarily have to have a plasma torch and cut this off and then try to find replacement parts, because some of this stuff, like this thing, I have no idea how old it is. I've not been able to find any kind of branding or serial number on it, so it may be older than me. I don't know. We'll maybe find out one day, but in the meantime, we're gonna try and get old girl back working. I've got some more of the parts inside. We'll take a look at them real quick. All right, so this is actually what most people would refer to as a bearing. The shaft that the disc blades are on, actually goes through here. And inside here, this is actually called a pillow block. You'll notice there's a lot of dried crud in here. The way this is designed is this sleeve sits in here. Then on top of it, and you can see the grooves on the outside where a U-bolt holds this to the main frame, but there's a Zerk fitting here where grease was allowed to get into this chamber, and it would ride in between all the metal parts and act as a lubricant. As you can see, whoever the last owner was did not use a lot of grease and probably hasn't taken this apart to actually properly clean it in a while. And you can see some wear in there, some metal on metal, a lot of grooves being cut into this where it wasn't properly lubricated. And you can see the rust points where it basically wasn't getting lubricated. And the reason for that is all this dried crud in here. Let me spin it around. There's actually about a little over 1/8 of an inch of dried grease and dirt that has gotten in here. And you can see this is like clay. And basically what that's done is created, instead of a lubricant base in here, you've got an abrasive base that now is basically sanding this shaft. Thankfully, it hasn't caused any major damage to where this is unusable, like causing cracks or excessive wear on this part, because I doubt I could even find one of these anymore. But you can see that when purchasing older equipment, it's definitely a good idea to take it apart and go through it very thoroughly to make sure that, especially any place there's a lubrication point, is in fact getting lubricated, because this could be extremely detrimental over time on the equipment. You can see where one side it's definitely been riding on that sanding surface. The other side wasn't even touching it because of that. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Also, I'm going to step over here. Something else you'll notice, and that's my boy's fire truck. I made them. These threads have a lot of rust in them. And what we're going to do is take a small 3-corner file and go in and clean out all these threads before we put this back together. That way the nut will go on a lot easier. We're probably going to put some anti-seize compound on there, but you can see where right there's some wear on the bar where this thing was not properly maintained at all. Thankfully, again, it's not catastrophic. This is still very usable, but we'll have to do some serious work to get this back in proper working condition so that we don't have to be concerned about it failing us once we put it back in service. So anyhow, just some thoughts that I came up on while I was working on some of this and want to share with you guys in case some of you are purchasing more relic equipment. The Fender Custom Shop charges a lot for this kind of work on guitars, so but apparently in the farming industry there's no extra charge for rust and dirt. So well, hope you guys found that interesting and hopefully somewhat informative. I'm going to get back to work trying to negotiate the rest of these bolts off, but appreciate y'all stopping by and hope y'all have a great day.